It is nice to see your faces. It gives us a lovely sense of, you know, being together in community. So it's lovely. I like seeing, it's great to see you, but that's totally your choice. Okay, so I'm going to just bear with me, please, while I share the screen. And I'm just hoping that you can see that. Can you see it? Maybe you give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, I'll go there for you.
That's great. Okay. I had a better view earlier, guys. Just bear with me a moment. I had a nice view where that I could see the whole thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll move it over. The best laid plans of mice and men. I had it all practice run. Everything went perfect. Okay, no problem. Just to give you a brief idea of our plan for this afternoon, just going to introduce you to the other members of the team shortly. And then the plan is to go through kind of plan of action, which will help you get the most out of the module, tips for learning activities, guidance around the assignment, a bit of a nuts and bolts and advice on referencing, and then lead you through other important resources that'll help you deal with the library and know where to seek help. And then we're going to take any questions that you might have. So really a bit of a whistle-stop tour around some resources and a bit of advice and tips that should help you in terms of the whole academic journey through your first module. Okay. I'd like to just introduce my colleagues who are here today with me. Michael Armstrong, who is our senior learning technologist and manages the whole technical support aspect of this online program, and Caoimhe Marshall, who is our operations assistant and is here helping with us today. Maybe you both like to say hello, folks.
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, guys. My name is Michael. Welcome to the meeting. Looking forward to it. And if you have any questions at the end relating to anything technical, you can give me a shout.
Thanks, Michael.
Hi everyone, I'm Caoimhe Marshall. I know some of you have dealt with me just during some of the admissions as well to this programme, and I'm the operations assistant here at ISEP. So if you have any questions about the administrative side of things, I'm here to help with those.
Thanks a million. Thanks, Caoimhe. Okay, right, so we're just going to go through a few pointers on getting the most out of this first module. So I'm aware that you know, for some of you, you maybe haven't been, you know, involved in any academic course of study for a while. So it's about getting back into the groove, getting familiar with what the expectations are, and getting familiar too, if you haven't been involved in online study, it's quite important that you explore all of the resources that are there for you. One of the things to remember when you're, and of course you're already a good few weeks in, so you've already discovered that you can't break Moodle, that there's nothing that you know, nothing's going to fall apart. So I hope by now that you have managed to familiarize yourself with the nuts and bolts of your home page and explored all the resources and the links and the different documents and the key things that are there on that homepage up in Moodle. So just taking your time, making sure that you invest the time in knowing what's there at your, and having it all at your fingertips is kind of really important. A mission critical piece in your first few weeks is to ensure that you have registered with UEL Direct. This is quite important because it ensures library access and everything else. And sometimes people find that because there's so much available on the homepage in Moodle through ISEP, that they take their time then getting involved with the UEL side of things. And there's two separate passwords, passwords and sort of sets of access, if you like. So it's quite important that as well as being sort of registered and enrolled with ISEP, that you register with UEL Direct, and that will ensure that everything at the university side of things goes smoothly. Another key issue is to actually read the module guide and the participant handbook. The participant handbook is the Bible for the whole program. And a lot of the questions that you'll have, either now or later on, will be answered in that participant handbook. So you'll learn kind of what the assessment criteria are, how, what the criteria are for getting extensions, very few, by the way, what our expectations are of you as a student, what your responsibilities are, where you can get support, what kinds of support are available, etc. And key contact people. All of those are in the participant handbook. So don't wait until you need something. Take it out one day, print it off if that works better for you, but do take the time to read it. The module guide, and I printed off one here for on autism. The module guide is a really important document as well. Again, that will have similar information, but at a module level. And it will guide you through the expectations, the learning outcomes, the criteria for success for your academic assignment and everything, and key contact information for your module tutor, etc., are all in that. So again, take the time to read that and get familiar with what is expected of you in the module. Engage with your tutor and your classmates. That's the best way of getting the most out of this module. Really, whatever you're studying, you will get out of it what you put in. So you will learn not just from the books, from the journals, from the online materials, but from your colleagues in the class, from their experiences, from the sharing of practice, from discussing things together, and from your tutors. All of the tutors on the program are absolutely expert veteran practitioners in their field. They have a wealth of practical experience. So if you're a teacher, you can draw upon them for practice information, but many of them are also published authors as well. So they're very, very expert practitioners and academics. So do draw upon them, engage with them, and they're very approachable. If you need an extra level of support from your tutor at any stage, let them know, email them, and they'll be usually very willing to set up a Skype call or arrange to talk to you if that is something you'd find helpful. Be sure to contribute to the discussions and the learning activities. Get reading, researching, and reflecting. The earlier you start that and develop a bit of a habit of study and of researching and of reading in the field, commit to a few hours a week of research, commit to a few hours a week of reading around your particular module, and plan your study and your assignment. So at this stage, you should have read the assignment, you should be beginning to plan your essay, and you should have a dedicated space ideally for studying, a place where you can sit down and work away quietly, and also kind of a dedicated study plan and a plan of action around your assignment. It's quite important too, and it is as a student, it's your responsibility to know what the critical dates are, the deadlines for your assessments, and to have a plan that will mean that you plan to have your assignment done a little bit in advance of it. So don't leave yourself right up against the wire. Be aware that we are here to support you. Everybody on the program, our job is to help you through, not put the barriers in the way. So in terms of the assessment tasks, they're supposed to be formative as well as summative. They're designed to support you in building the skills and knowledge and understanding which will make you much more effective in supporting children and young people with a range of diverse educational needs. So our job is to help you through, to be enabling and to be empowering. So don't be behind the door. If you need any help, get in touch with me, get in touch with the academic advisory team, get in touch with your tutor. Please ask and you will receive. Okay, so we'll look next at the first of the kind of learning tasks is, let me see here, sorry guys. You're probably at the stage of already having done a little bit of work on your learning activities. And I just thought it would be helpful to talk to you about learning activities and what is expected and getting the most out of your module in terms of the discussions. Essentially, you already know that within each module there are 8 learning activities, 2 per unit. And although you're not graded on these, they are really mission critical, really important to your learning and to the learning of your classmates, and to really engendering a level of discussion that you can all learn from and creating a community of learners. So they're also a great way for you to communicate with your fellow students and about what you're learning on the unit, and also a really good way for your tutors to follow your progress through the course and to know when you might need some extra input or assistance. So it's integral that you complete them properly in order to prepare too for your final assignment. So these are just some of general tips highlighting the importance of the discussion forums and the completion of the learning activities, and what the tutor is looking for in these learning activities is that you show evidence of understanding of the unit content, that you're demonstrating that you have read whatever the expected reading or unit content is for that learning activity. Your writing, you need to take a little bit of care with it, though you know, it's not an academic piece, but it is an opportunity for you to practice elements and respond and discuss ideas which you will play into your academic assignment. They are looking too for you to demonstrate your ability to analyze, critique, and offer appropriate solutions, and to be supportive and offer insightful responses to other students. And it is an opportunity, as I said, to share and collaborate with your classmates. One suggestion is really that in addition to the 2 learning activities per unit, it's a really good idea, if you think about it, that for each unit, it's a good idea to reply to 2 or 3 of your classmates' postings, as well as making the mandatory postings. That will engender a bit more discussion. So feel free, in addition to the sort of 2 substantive responses, to engage in a bit more discussion as well. Okay. That's the learning activities, and we'll take some time at the end of the session to ask any questions, you know, to answer any questions that you might have about that. So I'm going to go next on to talking to you about the assignment. So the assignment, the academic assignment, is the main way through that you are assessed on this program. And the written assignment, you'll be aware, has 2 parts. So it's a 5,000 word portfolio, and each part has 2,500 words. And 50% is a pass grade on this assignment. And you can, over 70 is distinction, and merit is between 60 and 69%. So just so that you know the kind of bands. So the main issue with the assignment here, we'll go through some of the main mistakes and some of the sort of the pitfalls, but really, if you haven't done an academic assignment for a while, or even if you haven't done one at master's level before, the key thing, I can't emphasize it enough, is to go through all of the guidance that there is up there in Moodle for you. Also talk to your tutor, ask the questions. There is a specific forum up in Moodle for the assignment. So there's plenty of guidance. It's like the map is there, all of the different ingredients are there. So please do use them. But we're going to just go through I'm going to try and provide you with a map, a kind of metacognitive scaffold, if you like, for the task in this session. So first of all, before you begin, you need to check the task. You need to clarify the core question. You need to be very clear about what are you being asked to do. So read the assignment brief. Where people fall down and don't achieve as well as they can do, and it is quite very achievable to get a good mark. Now, don't have an expectation that many of you will get distinction. A number of people in each class will get distinction, but it's a tall order, okay? But most of you, nearly everybody, can achieve really, really well on this module by following the assignment guidance and getting started on the task a little, well in time. So the other thing you need to do is be very clear about the assessment criteria. Read all the guidance. And one of the things that, I'm looking at the module for autism, and I'm going to just go straight here to the assignment. And the assignment, the first part of it, if I can find it. Would you believe? Can't find it. I thought I had printed that off, but the first part of it is, I think it in lots of the modules, I have it here. It's a critical review of literature, and it asks you to choose one of the interventions you've read about in the module and to critically evaluate its effectiveness in supporting young people with ASD, taking into account its evidence base and literature used to support it. So that's the assessment task. And what you need to bear in mind is not just that set of instructions, but critically what the learning outcomes are. So in following the set of instructions and in doing what it says on the tin, you have to demonstrate certain competencies. And so you have to look at the module learning outcomes. It's really important that you remember you are being assessed on the learning outcomes for the module and for that particular assessment task. So for that assessment task, there's 3 learning outcomes in particular. You have to demonstrate a systematic awareness and understanding and a critical awareness of ASD and the various approaches, and you have to critically reflect on professional values, concerns and priorities and understand them in a broader political and social context, and you have to evaluate current research in the field of autism. So when before you submit your assignment, you go back through it and you check, do I think I've met all those learning outcomes? And if you aren't clear about how to meet any of those learning outcomes, ask your tutor, okay? So I can't sort of overemphasize that. That's mission critical. So that's the point underneath: demonstrate a systematic understanding, critical awareness, reflection, analysis, etc., evaluation. Understand what is expected of you. That's absolutely so important. Plan your research. So this is before you begin to write it all. Plan your research, read the content, the core texts and beyond. One of the things people sometimes think is, when we say that everything you need to do the module is provided for you, it doesn't mean that all you have to read is the unit content. You are expected to go beyond that. You are expected to read the unit content and participate in the discussions, and also read the core recommended readings, and also to go a bit above and beyond that. But you need to be judicious and careful about the readings that you select. So in the age of the internet, there's a lot of stuff on the internet, but it's not peer reviewed. It's not of a particular standard. It's not often authoritative enough. So be very careful in your use of web-based sources, is what we would say. I will be giving you some resources which will allow you to evaluate and decide what you should be drawing on and shouldn't. But really look at the back of the module and content, and look at the type of sources that we draw upon or that your tutor recommends. And those are the kind of authoritative peer-reviewed sources that are most valuable to you in making your case and in writing your paper. Okay. The other thing to do is to keep track of your sources for your reference list. So have some system, whatever it is, and it'll save you a lot of time at the end. You do not want to be going at the end, spending ages trying to find references that at the end when you're writing up your assignment. Okay. So here are some key steps that we would suggest. It's really quite important. And I apologize now if I'm teaching you to suck eggs. I think some people here may be very, very happy and very at home with writing academic papers. But for most of us, if we haven't done it for a while, it's no harm to be reminded that it's a good idea to plan an outline. There is a suggested structure in your assignment brief. So there's an introduction and a sort of maybe there's an introduction, there's a conclusion, and then there's the substantive middle bits. And we have a suggested structure for each assignment in the assignment brief. Follow that and you will not go too far wrong. You don't have to follow that, but it is a safe plan of action. Remember that you've got to develop an overall argument, that you've got to have a story to tell, and you've got to have a consistency to the trajectory and to your line of thought as you progress through your paper. Group your ideas into themes and then paragraphs. Be careful not to have loads of little bitty paragraphs. Remember that a paragraph should be substantive. It's not 1 or 2 or 3 sentences. It's usually a bit more than that. Organize your argument logically. Remember to provide signposts and explanations. Part of the way you provide signposts is through using headers and subheaders. This helps structure the paper for yourself and for the reader. And it's also, I'd suggest, one of the things that's a very good idea is open a Word document, take the assignment brief, take the suggested structure and construct headings and subheadings from that. And now you have a skeleton that you can write into. So it's a good way of getting started, especially if that's something that you struggle with, and we all do at times. Remember that you have to critically evaluate research. That's one of the things people fall down on. And there'll be, so at this level, at the level of masters, you are expected not just to give a descriptive account or a historical account. So it's not about regurgitating what you're told or what you've read. It's about making it your own. It's about taking it in, thinking about it, evaluating it, critiquing it, saying, you know, and comparing and contrasting different perspectives and counter arguments. So it has to be a little bit muscular, you know, it has to have a little bit of bite in it. And we want to see that you've thought about it, these ideas, that you've made them your own, and that you are able to contextualize them in terms of your own experience, your own context, but also in the field of the research generally. Really very important is the whole idea of evidencing your ideas and supporting your conclusions. So sometimes, even if things seem really, really obvious, it's quite important. Common knowledge doesn't have to be evidenced, but most things in an academic paper do need to be evidenced. Opinion is not what the academic writing is about. You have to support your ideas. So it's not a good idea to say, you know, dyslexia is a very common, you know, problem. It's much better if you can say dyslexia affects 20% of readers, according to, you know, Gavin Reid 2013. That is evidencing that assertion. And that is a much more solid plank for your introduction rather than just a piece of unsupported, an unsupported statement or a piece of opinion. So just remember, when you're writing an essay, an academic piece of writing has to be supported. It's a bit like you're standing up in a court of law. and you've got to make your case, okay? And given the week that's in it, I suppose, you know, Biden and Trump spring to mind. And I'm thinking, well, you could be saying, well, President Trump says this, but on the other hand, Biden says the other, and the evidence for Trump's assertions are not provided on the other hand. So when you're making a critical argument or a critical analysis, it's quite important that you provide the evidence for all of your views. Okay. Yeah, I mean, using key literature is also important. So we want you to draw on a range of different writing. So when you're citing supporting your arguments, what I want to see really as your tutor, what I want to see is that you have used not one or two sources, not simply the unit content, but gone beyond that, and that you've used a range, that you've used some research articles, that you've used key and classic texts, that you've drawn from policy documents, maybe a practitioner perspective. Do you understand? So you will do really well if you use a range of different sources. You will do really well if you can crack the code in terms of referencing Harvard style. So these are things that are easy to do with a bit of practice, but if you don't do them, it'll really negatively affect your potential grade. Okay, just a point here about, I'll go into a little bit more detail about Harvard referencing and that, but in terms of using key literature, there is a thing called source dependence, and that's when you use one source too much, or one or two sources, and basically over rely on them, and that's to be discouraged. Again, you've got to use your academic writing has to be balanced. It has to draw from a range, like I said, not just one or two sources. And ideally, while you can reference the unit content, it's better if you reference other sources and don't over rely on the unit content. Because remember that that's the equivalent of the face-to-face lecture that you might have. So you wouldn't typically be referencing that. So look a bit broader than that is what I would say. You can say that something is your opinion, or you can cite your own experience, but you should clearly identify it as your opinion or being from your experience. And you should then connect it to something in research or something, a substantive other supporting source. So in my experience, children with autism are not, don't easily imitate behavior. And this is actually also mirrored in the view of X, who talks about children needing support to be taught imitative behavior. Do you see what I mean? So if I'm going to talk about my own experience or my own opinion, I will then link it to another supporting kind of plank of evidence. In terms of writing style, you will need to use the first person when you're writing about your own practice. However, when you're writing about the literature that you've read, ideally you should depersonalize your writing. So you would say maybe overall, the arguments put forward by Kelly et al. 2015 appear to be well supported. Okay, and when you're commenting on whatever, so that's not mission critical, no one's going to kill you over that, but just try to get that, finding your academic voice takes a little bit of practice. And you'll see, if you read a chapter of a book, say by someone like Gavin Reed or whoever, you'll see the kind of academic tone that's used. And you keep emotion out of it, generally speaking. You keep it kind of objective and balanced. So you will, with experience, find your own academic voice. And it is a particular skill and part of what you're developing on this program is that whole set of academic skills. Okay. So those are kind of some of the key steps. In terms of writing your assignment, I would say that you need to sort of have some rough drafts, maybe start with a concept map, then draft, then redraft. Be very careful when it comes to editing and proofing and spell checking. Sometimes people lose loads of marks because they didn't actually spell check it. They didn't proof it. And some of us are better at that than others. If you have to give it to a critical friend to read it through, do. That could, getting someone to put their eye over it can be a really big help. We recommend also that you submit a draft at an early enough stage, maybe a few days in advance of the submission date. You submit it through Turnitin to check your similarity score. Now, Turnitin is a web-based tool, which some people think it's a plagiarism checker. It isn't. It's really, it's a very, it's like a submission inbox for your assignment. But what it does is it detects similarity scores, and you do not want an overly high similarity score. And if you find you have a high similarity score, you need to go in and check why that is. Sometimes it's simply because you have a very long reference list. But what you want to make sure is that it isn't because of unintentional plagiarism or accidental plagiarism. And that can happen where you cut and paste bits out of an article and you put it in your notes and you forget to make a note of the fact that that is a quotation. So be very careful when you're collecting material that you take a note when it is a quotation, because you do not want to get into trouble over plagiarism. We'll talk about that in a minute. So Turnitin, we can talk about Turnitin and similarity scores a little bit at the end and take any of your questions around that, but that is the value of it. It's a very good screening device in terms of making sure you're not breaking any rules around that. Tutors, your tutors will take drafts, so they will take draft assignments, but each of the tutors decides, generally speaking, they set a final date sometime in December for that. So, you know, and Christmas comes in the middle before you have to submit your assignment this term. So be sure to check the date and get a draft into your tutor. And if it isn't a complete assignment, it's still probably worth doing that because you will get feedback. So check with your tutor about that draft. Check with your tutor too. Each tutor, I know that Gillian and I know that Valerie have lists up about, and I've consulted with the various tutors and gotten most of their pet bits of advice in putting this together. So I know that some tutors have sort of special things up in the assignment forum. They have their own pointers and most, you know, like things they want you to remember when you're putting in your assignment. So check that out. There's a few resources here that I have that I would highly recommend. First of all, this UEL resource is Write It Right. It's from the Cass School of Education and Communities in UEL, and it's a really good resource on academic writing skills, and well worth exploring, and has little exercises and pointers for you to use in writing your assignment. The second resource there is an academic phrase bank from Manchester University, which is full of the academic terminology and phrases that are so helpful in constructing your arguments, you know, and in refuting and in counter arguments, and the sorts of phrases that are useful in an introduction and in a conclusion, etc. So it's got a wealth of helpful pieces there, so I would highly recommend it. And finally, the last resource there is from the University of Edinburgh. It's actually from 2014, and it's a PDF document. But what it is, it's a set of resources on academic writing for postgraduates. And it's a set of resources designed initially for people at master's level who are doing, for whom English isn't their first language, but I'm telling you, it's brilliant. So it leads you through academic expectations. It has really good sections on language. It has good sections on the sorts, how to make your point, how to construct an argument, etc. So I think those three pieces, and many of these are already up in Moodle and in other documents. So some of them are already linked in the module guide or whatever, but you have them here. We will be putting this document up in Moodle as well, so you'll be able to access these, but I can't recommend them highly enough. And again, taking a couple of hours to read through these, or even just saving them on your desktop would be a really good thing to do as you're writing your paper. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the whole area of academic integrity and referencing. This may be something that seems a little arbitrary and over the top and difficult and not that important, but it really, really is so crucial to master. Not just because you don't want to lose marks, not just because you don't want to risk plagiarizing, but also because it's a really important way of you demonstrating your knowledge, your learning, and how you have developed it, and the lengths that you have gone to in researching and reading and preparing this important academic assignment that you're going to submit. In terms of academic misconduct, how it's defined is any type of cheating in an assessment for the purposes of achieving personal gain. And the problem here is that it's actually so easy to do it inadvertently. So that's why you really have to get to grips with how to reference. There's a resource there at the end, Cite Them Right. And there's also a YouTube guide on how to use it. And within the Cite Them Right resource, you can go in and you can practice. So it teaches you how to reference different types of sources, books, articles, YouTube videos, websites, etc. And then you can practice. So there isn't any excuse really. The source, the type of reference, the reference style for this program is Harvard. So you need to get practicing and you need to take a bit of time and it's a bit like learning grammar, okay? Learning how to punctuate a sentence. Think about it that way. And try to learn and practice well in advance so that you don't have to think about it too hard. Again, leaving these things to the end. If you spent 2 hours or 1 hour even doing this, it would be all that you would take to learn how to reference in Harvard style from scratch, okay? And most of you have some familiarity. You actually probably don't know how much you know. So it's a matter of just getting to grips with it. And as I said, going through that Cite Them Right resource is the easiest way. And it's up, you'll find it in UEL. There are links to there's also advice within Moodle on referencing, plenty of advice there. There are 2 different levels, I suppose, of problems with referencing. One is when people really don't really understand how to do it at all. And they provide incomplete or incorrect citations. Now remember, there's 2 types. You've got to reference within the text and you've got to reference in the reference list. It's called a reference list, not a bibliography. A bibliography is something different. A reference list is a list of all the citations that you have used in your academic paper. It's not, a bibliography is wider. A bibliography can be everything that you read to prepare for the paper, but we're not asking for that. It's just a list of the citations and the sources you have quoted or used in the paper. So incomplete, poor academic conduct really comprises incomplete or incorrect citations, over-reliance or source dependence, too many direct quotes, or inadequate paraphrasing. These will lose you marks, but they're not deadly sins, if you like. Too many direct quotes, what's the problem with that? Well, it's academically kind of lazy. It's much better to paraphrase. Put something into your own words, then we know that you've digested it, you've made the knowledge your own. It's all too easy to cut and paste, put quotation marks around something, plop it in the middle of the page and cite it with the page number. That's accurate, but it doesn't show me that you've made it your own. So a good rule of thumb is really that you should be very selective with your quotations and have no more than about I would say 4 or 5 per paper. It's very important that you learn how to paraphrase and put the ideas of others into your own words. So plagiarism then is up a notch. And what we're talking about here is unattributed information copied from other sources. Now, it's easy to do that inadvertently. And sometimes that often happens with web sources as well. So be warned. Missing citations also counts as plagiarism. Inadequate paraphrasing can also end up as plagiarism. And using work submitted elsewhere also counts as plagiarism. I think this is very unfair myself, but this is, if I've written an essay on inclusion in my undergrad, and I take that essay and I submit it, or large chunks of it, for this particular module at postgrad, that's known as self-plagiarism. You can't do it. And that's something that we're not familiar with. So it's quite important that you don't get caught on that. So practice referencing, check and cross-check, go through, make sure that everything you have cited in your paper is in your reference list at the back before you submit it, etc. And as I say, that particular resource is so valuable, and it won't lead you astray. If you get to grips with it, you'll be doing fine, and it'll help you produce a really high quality piece of work. And if you're not clear about the basics, ask your tutor, put your question up there in the assignment forum, and your tutor will be happy to guide you. All right. Let's see then. Sorry, guys. Right. Finally, we're getting on to kind of the final hurdle when it comes to presentation. Presentation is quite an important piece of the academic discourse and writing skills. These are some tips and suggestions from the tutors. So it's quite important that you always put the page number, student number on the footer of your assignment. That's the Lucinda Sans is the font, and it should be in font 10. Your submission on Turnitin should not have your name on it. Sometimes people do forget and put their name. So they're supposed to be anonymized just with your student number. So please take care with that. Stick to the word count. There's a bit of wriggle room, plus or minus 10% is okay. And your reference list and the front page aren't included, but please do stick to the word count, because there are penalties for going over the word count. Not huge penalties, but you could lose up to 10%. Carefully spell check and proofread everything before you submit it. And remember that early submission will help catch any issues with high similarity scores, and you'll be able to correct them. In terms of the UEL library, at this stage, I hope you're all getting familiar with it and have gone in and explored. But I am just conscious that some of you mightn't have gotten to that stage yet. So there is a YouTube video here about getting started with the library. And also just to let you know, and again, Win's name is up online, but Win Pang is the program librarian, and she is very, very accessible, really, really skilled and supportive. So she's there as a resource for you if you have any questions or are trying to source something about a particular aspect of your module. In terms of the supports available to you as a student on this program, depending upon your the nature of your query, you can turn to the academic advice service. That's myself and the rest of the team here. We don't give module specific advice, but it's more general academic advice. Admin support is Antoinette, and that email there, info. Library support, that's the general library support. The Student Hub will also connect you with a range of UEL services. There's the UEL IT desk and the ISEP Europe IT support service as well. And of course, the front line for most queries to do with your learning will be your tutor. So your tutor is the main person, but for the other services, this is the rest of the support team. So I hope that you have found some of this helpful and supportive. We will be holding another session like this next term. So for continuing students, you also have that option. Just before we give you the chance to ask your questions, I'd just like to ask if anybody would be willing to be the student representative for the program. Every term we have, excuse me, we have a number of forums where we ask students to tell us about their learning experiences, and your feedback then allows us to improve our teaching and learning and respond to any issues that you might be experiencing. There's also, that's mainly through the module feedback, and there's a midpoint evaluation form or forum where we ask you to go in. You'll see that that should be up in Moodle already. But in addition, I'd just like to ask if anybody would be willing to act as a student rep for the program. We are trying to recruit a couple of you to do that. You would then have the role of being the voice for your classmates, and it's not too onerous a job. We would ask you maybe to attend a Zoom meeting once or twice a year where we would meet with you and consider kind of, issues to do with student experiences, and you would give us the student experience issues, and we would then deal with them and discuss. It's really about quality assurance and feedback and having your voice as a group of students. So I'm just wondering if anybody would like to put their name forward. You can either email the academic support service after this meeting, or maybe text us in the text box there into the chat. Okay, I won't Shanghai anyone, I promise. So I'll just leave it to yourselves to volunteer. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go next and give you the chance, hand over the floor to you. And if anybody would like to ask a question, maybe you can just, happy to take any questions, myself, Michael, and Kiva, in whatever way we can. So if you would like to just tell us any questions you have, we're here to help.
Thanks for that, Deirdre. And just to remind everyone as well, you've been automatically muted for the meeting. So if you do have a question, please just check to unmute your microphone and then ask away.
Thanks, Kiva.
What about the physical library card that we were expected to sign up for from UEL? Do we need to get that, or do we not need that?
I think that some of the issues around the physical, you do not need a physical library card.
Okay, yeah.
You do not need one. And mostly our students, we can request that for you. I can check that out. If you were living nearby the university. No. no, it's not.
I was just
no,
wondering if it would impede the process or so, but
no,
it
no, no,
doesn't.
no,
Okay.
no, no, it's not necessary. Everything is available online
Yeah. Okay.
through UEL Direct. Yeah.
Okay.
So once you register with UEL Direct,
Yeah.
and the instructions for that are up in Moodle, and
Yeah.
I think will have been sent to you. So once you register with UEL Direct,
Yeah.
you will get library access to be no
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah. I've been in there, so that's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Evelyn. I'm wondering if, Michael, if you'd like to say a couple of words about Turnitin for people, because I think that can be something that, you know, people aren't all that familiar with.
Yeah, sure, no problem at all, Deirdre. So I suppose Turnitin, if you guys probably on your module, if you scroll down to the assignment section, you'll see submit your assignment here. Now that's really as much as about Turnitin as you need to know for the module itself. So all that happens is, and the point that we're keen to get across here is that you guys should utilize this as a tool. You know, in some aspects, it does check for large swathes of plagiarism, but that's not its use. What you guys should be using it for is that you can submit multiple drafts into that Turnitin link at any time, right? So say, for instance, you had a draft done, and Deirdre had alluded to it earlier, that it's very helpful for you guys. There's the facility there from your tutor to submit a draft. Avail of that opportunity, because that feedback is for free, right? So just in case you were going slightly off track or anything else, your tutor could advise. If you encountered a situation where your similarity was high and you needed some feedback or whatever else, that can all be ironed out at an early stage if you submit a draft. And your similarity rating will come back as a percentage number. So the first time you submit into that link there, you will generate a similarity rating within 30 minutes. Subsequent submissions can take up to 24 hours. The reason I'm telling you that, and that hopefully you guys have the time to submit a draft in advance of the submission date, because what happens is, if, for instance, 2 days before the assignment, you submit your first draft, a similarity rating comes back to you, which you want to amend. You can resubmit that assignment in the same link. So you just follow the exact same process. And what happens is it overwrites the last submission. So your latest always overwrites the last, right? So what you may see there, and obviously depending on, you know, whether everyone's submitting in around the same time, it can for a period say the word pending. There's nothing to worry about here. What the system is realizing is that it's seen a submission similar to this before, and it just takes a lot longer to trawl through the database to let you know that it will generate a similarity response rating, but it will take slightly longer to do. But you can do that multiple times, as much as you like. There are no restrictions. And as I say, the latest submission overwrites all of the previous ones. So I would suggest to you, as early as is possible, to get yourself on track. And I know life can get in the way of these situations. Sometimes it doesn't allow. But if at all possible, submit a draft as early as possible. Get your feedback from your tutor, and then make the amendments as necessary and submit your amended draft. And as I say, you can use that facility as much as you like up until I'm not gonna, and this is the thing that so it's not a case that you just, as you would in a face-to-face environment, you can drop your submission in the inbox, whatever, at 5 to 5 or whatever the deadline is. I would just suggest to you, try not to leave it as close to the deadline as is possible, just in case, for whatever reason, from your side, or in the rare event from our side, if there was a technical glitch or you had a difficulty uploading, allow yourself the time and stress to submit in advance of that.
And Tripty is asking here, Michael, in the chat, whether she needs to mention it's a draft. So it depends. If it's a draft for your own thing, you can sort of put that in the title, can't you, Michael?
You can put that in the title. That's not an issue. But when you're submitting your next iteration, you can change that title.
Yeah.
And again, just in case, if you ever wondered, there's no major hassle if it goes in as draft, right? So whatever the latest version would be there, would be the version that the tutor would correct after the deadline has passed.
Yeah. If you are putting a draft in, say in early December, for your tutor to have a look at and give you some sort of guidance and feedback on at that stage, it would be important. The tutor isn't routinely checking turn it in and mightn't get an automatic notification. So if Gillian is your tutor, email Gillian and say, Gillian, I'm putting in a draft here now. So, you know, just signal that to your tutor and then they will look at it.
So, sorry, so I'll just check on that from Evelyn. Is turning in for showing your assignment to your tutor, or do you do this per email? So,
Yeah.
turning in essentially, Evelyn, is, yeah, you can send that. The tutor will go in and correct in that environment. Yes, that is correct. What some of the tutors ask you for a draft submission is that maybe, you know, you can put it through Turnitin. It may come back to you with a similarity rating that you have a query about that you'd like more information on. Just download that particular version, and you can, now again, your tutor will tell you. You can email that particular version where they can give you feedback on your draft, and then you can make the necessary changes and re-upload the Turnitin again. Is that okay?
Great. One thing I didn't cover, because it's actually the guidance is in the handbook and up online, is the issue of extensions. So just to say to you that extensions are not, some universities I've worked, it's easy to get a short extension for a week or a fortnight after the deadline. That is not the case in UEL. So I'm just flagging that. Extensions are really quite difficult to get. So they're only given under very extreme, or what they call extenuating circumstances. They are not in the gift of the academic team to actually give you. So I can't give it to you. The module lead can't give it to you. The program lead can't give it to you. It has to go up to a committee in the university. It has to be evidenced with medical certs and the whole 9 yards. So it's a very serious endeavor to get an extension. So just bear that in mind. Like, it's not impossible, but it has to be illness, it's bereavement, it's really, really serious circumstances. It's not, you know, I had a computer crash. It's not, my workload was too heavy. Those are not reasons. So that will, for an academic extension under the UEL rules. So now, if you really don't despair though, because there are options. So you can submit it a little bit late. Maybe you need a day or two and you will get a bit of a penalty for the lateness, but it's still maybe worth doing it. So get in touch. If you have a problem, get in touch. Do not wait until the problem is too big to handle. So if you need some extra support earlier on, just ask. And that way we'll try and do whatever we can. So, but just to say to you, the extension route is not an easy one. And the way it works is you have to make an application for an extension, and then you don't know whether you have it for quite some time. Isn't that right, Kiva?
Apologies, I was stuck on mute. Yeah, it can take a while.
Yeah.
A lot of the time the extensions will be requested kind of closer to the assignment due date, when people realize they won't get it done in time. And sometimes students will have to submit their assignment late, and then they may not receive that extension, just if they didn't have those extenuating circumstances. And in that case, then there would be a penalty, but they would still be graded as such.
Yeah, so I mean, the other option, anyway, I don't want to be too negative, but that's just to flag that for you. And we usually say, look for the support in advance, and we will support you to get over that, okay? Or else, if it's early enough in the module and you're not really, it's not working out for you, get in touch and we can see about parking that module. So there isn't any penalty. Say you start your next module and are finding things too much. If you pull out of it within the first couple of weeks, it's no big deal, but it's harder to do that further on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if I could just jump back in there, Deirdre, as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, there's a question there. Is this where we submit the final essay to? It is. That's the point where you submit the final essay. So your final essay goes in that Turnitin link. Just a brief overview, and I think Deirdre has gone into detail on this, so I won't delay. So on the Moodle site, from an ISEP perspective, they're the logins you would have been sent initially, and you logged onto the Moodle platform. Within that platform, you see all your content or your course interactions and what you have to do, and your final submission, right? So when you submit that assignment to that Turnitin link, by that submission date, it will generally be a period of between 3 and 4 weeks, and you'll get your grade and feedback in that link again, right? So if you want scripts or anything relating, you know, from a more official part, if you're down the road a little bit and you're due certification, what we're using or utilizing UEL for is you register first for UEL Direct, you have access, you then register for the library. This is a once a semester issue, and the only reason it's once a semester is that the guys will change passwords, and they'll make you register again for your next module, right? And then thereafter, you will be able to go in and get transcripts within that environment. Now, this is much later on when you've completed certain sections. But if you can separate the two out that way and thinking, right, in terms of my module here, I've got the 4 units of content. As Deirdre has said, the forums that you contribute to, modules 1, 2, 3, and 4, making your contributions along the way. And then you have your submission, your assignment. It's usually, Deirdre, I'm correct in saying there's 2 parts to the assignment, a part 1 and a part 2, right? Both being of 2,500 words, right? Now, I'll just add this in here. So if you see on your modules, you'll see an assignment cover sheet, right? And that'll be in Microsoft Word. If you download that cover sheet, that's the first part of your assignment. That's your first page. So you can put thereafter part 1, and you start your essay from there, the question that's asked, and you start that essay from there. Part 2 also goes on that submission page as well. So remember, in essence, even though there's 2 component parts to your assignment, you are only making 1 submission. So everything goes on that part 1, followed by part 2, and then your referencing section at the end. Is that okay?
The reference section for the 2.
For the
1 and 2 together.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's submitted then as 1 doc. Is that all right?
I hope that these are very strange times, and I know that depending upon where you are, we're actually in kind of I guess we're in lockdown, aren't we, Michael? We're in lockdown here. I don't know.
Certainly are, yeah.
Yeah, life is very, very boring. Gabby, you've raised a hand. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, please. I just wanted to find out that email address of that you gave us earlier, the one of the academic advisor. Who does that go to?
That
Because
goes,
I used it a few weeks back and I haven't got any reply.
I don't know why you wouldn't have gotten a reply. Kiva, would you like to answer that? We can check, Gabby, but maybe we'll put it up. Kiva, can you put it in there into it's academic advisor at icepi.eu, isn't that right, Kiva?
Hi, yes, academic advisor at icepi.eu. I don't know why you wouldn't have got a reply to your email. Let me just.
Yeah, I'm looking because I sent it on the 16th of October.
Okay, well, I'll chase that down for you and see. I'll have to look into that on an individual kind of basis. But yeah, no, I'll look into that for you, Gabby. That's no problem.
All right, thanks.
Sorry about that, Gabby. That one is, we operate as a team here. So that one is checked by myself and Kiva and Michael and other members of the team. So we operate as an academic advisor team. So it is checked every day. So you should have gotten a reply, but we'll look into it.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Michael just said it's only one document submission. Part 1, part 2, and then the reference list. It's not a bibliography It's a reference list,
That's
like you
it.
said.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, no, that's important. And of course, different institutions and different types of programs of study use different referencing formats. So some of you may be used to footnotes, okay? Here we're allergic to footnotes, so no footnotes. And it's just, if you can spend the time this term getting used to the Harvard referencing system and getting a bit of practice on it, then you'll have learned a skill which is going to save you time right along the way. Now remember too that in Word, up at the top bar, there is a little there is a referencing function which will, you know, help you to format your references as you go. So it's worth spending time investing in developing this skill at this stage, at the beginning of your course of studies.
Again, guys, I'll just, sorry, Isabel, I'll let you jump in now. I was just in relation to the assignment, just a further footnote there. So the cover sheet and your referencing section, right? When you, when turning in generate the similarity rating for those, right? They'll be included and your similarity rating might be high. For digital submissions for online programs, we have to insist on a cover sheet and a reference section, right? But what I'm saying to you is don't be alarmed by the similarity on the cover sheet or the reference section, because you guys will pretty much be using the same core text and extended readings and whatever else. So where you need to pay most attention is to the main body of the assignment. And I think Deirdre has discussed what you should do within there, and just be also very mindful to, you know, I suppose not copy swathes of or passages of text. That, you know, you make sure that you get in and by all means utilize or reference them, but use your own words in terms of describing and whatever else. But again, not to put large passages or swathes of text in the main body. So that's just something to be mindful of if you see a similarity rating and it's high, and it seems to be a lot in the reference section or the cover sheet. We have to have those digitally submitted. But when we're looking for similarities, or when similarities are being observed from a tutoring perspective or correction point at the end, it's in the main body where they're being viewed.
Yeah.
All right. Hello, I have a.
Hi.
Just to clarify, there are no in-between assignments, right? Because I heard about formative.
You're breaking up a little bit, Bankole. There are no in-between assignments. You are simply assessed on your assignment at the end, which is the written essay. However, the learning activities and your participation in the discussion boards, while you're not graded on them, they're really quite important for you, for your own learning and for creating a kind of, you know, a whole community of learners in the class, and for sharing good practice with each other. So does that clarify?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Good.
Hi, I just had a question with regards to the sources that we must put in the reference list. Just to be clear, if I have used some resources that I'm just using for paraphrasing, does that go in the reference list as well?
What do you mean, Isabel?
So I'm doing some research and I'm reading something and I'm so paraphrasing from it, just taking so I'm not referencing, actually quoting, I'm not quoting anything in my assignment. Do I still put that in the reference list, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So anything that I really researched on and used for my assignment goes in the reference list.
Yes, and that actually helps me as your tutor, say, assessing your work. So I can see, well, Isabel has gone and read Carol Dweck on mindset, okay? So if you're talking about, you know, a growth and a fixed mindset, or how children respond to failure and learned helplessness, and you're talking about this, then if you put in brackets DWEC 2019, I know that that thinking, that idea came from your reading of her work. So now I know that Isabel went beyond the module content and she read this work and is relating it to this idea of children failing in dyslexia, for example. Do you know what I mean? So that shows that there's depth to your learning, and that you are having, you know, that you're getting to grips with it, that you're making the ideas your own, and that you're connecting the theory, the research, the practice all together. But that's what we want to see. It's this kind of muscular engagement with the learning, not a kind of a passive reading and giving back. And at master's level, so in the undergrad, the expectation, and again, forgive me if this seems so obvious, but sometimes people lose marks, not because they're being inaccurate, not because they're not telling me the truth, not because they haven't referenced it, but because it's too descriptive, it's not critical enough, and they're not pulling it apart, engaging, interrogating, proving, making a case, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabel. Somebody is asking, Angola, you're asking about a reference list. Is there a minimum to have a pass? You know, if somebody had less than 10, I'd be saying, did you do any reading? So I would say, but you know, you should be reading the core readings. You should be reading some journal articles as well. You should be reading the policy documents on inclusion in your own jurisdiction. You should be reading, and you don't have to read this from beginning to end. You know, I'm not expecting people to have read a textbook every page, but you should be reading key chapters. You should be informing yourself, and maybe, yeah. So the really best papers, maybe they would have 30, 40, 50 references. Do you know? So yeah, the wider and deeper your reading, the better. You learn more, but you don't have to have read 100 different things, you know. Maybe 10 might be a minimum. Well, I hate putting a number to it. I hope that helps. I'm conscious that time is getting on, and that you know, I know you may be in lockdown and life might be boring, but you all still have different things to do, and maybe, so I don't want to be keeping you too long, but if there are still questions to answer, we're happy to take them. Okay, I don't think, I don't see any hands up or any more questions. So I would just like to thank all of you for being here this evening, for taking part in this session. I hope that you found it helpful. Please do email us and tell us if there's anything else you think we should cover in this session. We will be delighted, you know, to hear of any of your suggestions. And, you know, please do. We're going to put this recording up. It will be there for you. We're going to put up a PDF of the PowerPoint as well. So please do use those resources. Keep in touch with us. Let us know in any way if we can support you. And best of luck with this first module. And I hope you really, really enjoy it. So I know it's hard in lockdown, guys, but I hope you're all keeping safe and well. And at least maybe this study is a bit of a distraction. That's at least one thing. Okay. Thank you so much. It's been lovely to see you all virtually, and we'll talk again, because we will be having these other sessions in your continuing modules, and you'll be welcome back at those as well. The other thing I forgot to say, folks, is that you are each individually welcome to contact me for an individual session. That is there for you, okay? So every one of you is welcome. If you wish to avail of it, that is there. So you just have to get in touch and we'll set up an appointment, and it can be an email or, you know, it can be Skype or telephone or Zoom, whatever suits. Okay. All right. Lovely to talk with you folks, and we'll see you soon. Okay.
Thanks very much, guys. Cheers.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.